All right, I'm close enough to 10 o'clock if you all are ready. Sorry for the back and forth with the camera. Like the camera guy couldn't decide the best angle here. So my name is Craig Dehut, and for those of you that I've already met, I'm thrilled that you're willing to put up with me for this talk. And for those of you that I haven't met, I look forward to talking more with you. I am one of the co-founders, and let's turn the microphone on. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Appian Media, and we are a nonprofit video production company that travels over to the Bible lands and creates free videos, documentary style, to help students re-engage with the biblical text. And so we are dedicated to create biblically accurate, visually engaging, free media for people to connect with God's Word. We want people to see and understand what God's Word is really about. The lecture this morning is sharing with you some of my own personal experiences, how I went to film school and learned from individuals that were very talented at their craft, but came from a very different worldview than I do as a Christian. And what that did to me and for me, and what I hope I can now use to better the world and counter their agenda. So we're familiar with the story. Greek soldiers were able to take the city of Troy after a fruitless 10-year siege by hiding in a wooden horse. And they tricked that city into thinking that they had won, and here's this gift to acknowledge a surrender. And they were able to then sneak into that city and destroy it from the inside out. I've been presenting material like this on these particular subjects for about 15 years, since I graduated film school in 2007. Back then, it was a little bit more difficult to convince people of the things that I had heard and seen and been taught by Hollywood professionals, trying to convince people of conscience and faith that Hollywood does not have your best interests in mind. It's an easier argument to make in 2022. It's not that hard to get people to realize that they are not trying to better your family. They're trying to destroy it. In fact, within the last couple of months, major companies within Hollywood have simply dropped the facade. They're not even trying to hide inside of a wooden horse. They're simply telling you what they're after, and we're letting them do it, by and large. We've allowed Hollywood, their movies and their shows, their podcasts, their songs, I would say media in general, to roll their godless ideologies into our homes and destroy our families from the inside out. But the tools that they are using are amoral. The tools themselves are not evil. And what I hope to convey to you this morning is that we can use these tools to counter their culture. We can learn from these professionals to use their talents against them. Listen, media has changed since I graduated. YouTube was first introduced the year I went to film school. Can you imagine a world without YouTube? The idea that you could shoot 4K video, like I'm doing with my phone over there, on your phone was ridiculous. Like, no one was talking that way. We were thrilled that we were getting 2-megapixel photos on our tiny little screens, and then we didn't know what to do with them after that, because you couldn't get it off the phone. In 2022, the average person is said to spend 100 minutes per day watching online videos. 100 minutes a day just watching videos. So think of all the other things that you do online on that screen. The neck-breaking speed of innovation in media and communications has only increased. It's the inevitable nature of this medium. And what we think are groundbreaking, let's prepare ourselves, our kids are going to laugh at in 10 years. They already kind of do. You say, wait, you used to have to dial up to the internet? Like, what does that mean? And what's that sound that you're talking about? Do you guys remember? And you couldn't be on the phone at the same time? 10 years from now, what are we going to be using? What I want to do in this workshop are three things. I'm going to first reveal some of Hollywood's worldviews and their objectives. Let's make it clear what they're after. And I'm not guessing. I trained at their feet and they told me so. So I'll share with you some of the methods that they taught us in order to manipulate you with our media. And I choose that word very intentionally. Second, I want to challenge us and encourage us as parents to better evaluate our entertainment choices and protect our families. And I get it, it's super easy, we're busy, we can't quite handle everything, so we set them in front of a show. I've got 3 young kids at home, I understand. What are they being taught? Because anytime we sit them down in front of a show, they are not merely being entertained, they are being taught. So what are the ways that we can evaluate our entertainment choices and better protect our family? And then, and this I think is important, especially for a venue like what we're doing this weekend, how can we, either ourselves or encourage in our children, use the culture-changing power of media for good? I am thrilled to say you don't have to go to film school anymore to learn this. And you can acquire these skill sets so that we don't have to remain beholden to Hollywood and their messaging. So unlike Hollywood and their MO since its founding, I'm going to be perfectly clear and upfront about my objectives and the worldview in which I approach this topic, and it's this. Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse 13, "Therefore, preparing our minds for action and being sober-minded, set our hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in your conduct, since it is written, 'You shall be holy, for I am holy.'" I am not here to share with you my standards of movie watching. I'm not interested in that. I don't think you are. I'm not here to tell you what the church's standards are for movie watching and entertainment. We're talking about God's and its perfect holiness. So what am I consuming, watching, reading, listening to, and does it conform with that? So I want to offer you a unique perspective. I've presented this material numerous times around the country, not because I am an authority on this topic, but I do believe that God has provided me a relatively unique experience on this particular subject. When I went to film school, and I was there for 2 years, it took me 6 months to find another person of faith. Not necessarily someone who agreed with me on all points doctrinally, just to find someone who acknowledged God's existence. It took me 6 months. Now, I'm sure they were there, and maybe I should have been more outspoken about my faith, but 6 months before we all were even comfortable enough to say so, because we were so inundated with the world's ideology. I was trained by instructors who, in some capacity, were teaching us, but also still working in the industry, or had for decades. And before going, I had grown up in a homeschool Christian home. I had considered myself aware of what I was getting myself into, at least I thought. Trying to prep myself and build the defenses that I think every college student should, going into an environment where I understood they would likely be hostile in some regard to my faith, but I was not prepared for the blatant and offensive disregard that my fellow students, many of my professors, not all, but many of them, and the school administrators had for my faith. My English professor purported that God and Christianity were merely created by those in power to keep the masses under control. Have you all heard this? After debating with him for 45 minutes, he broke us for lunch and said, I don't want to talk about this when we come back. My script writing teacher, we had 2 class periods and even an assignment based on the idea that sex sells. Now go and create a commercial that indicates this idea. I left class early on presentation day. Some of the movies that we were assigned to watch and evaluate were a level of depravity that I have never seen before. And with God's forgiveness, I hope to never see again. Many of which I foolishly thought, I can get through this, and I'm going to kind of just block this out and do the assignment and grit my teeth. Foolishness. I now have images and scenarios in my brain that I will never get out. But that was the assignment. Listen, more than merely learning to construct films to entertain you with stories, we learned to construct ideas and effectively communicate them with our audience. We learned to educate you. We learned to inspire you. We learned how to change the way you think. And it wasn't until I sat at the feet of these film professionals and heard them talk about film in this way. It wasn't simply, we want to let them have a good time. It was, we want to teach you by any means necessary to alter the thought process of your audience. They talked about it like a weapon to be wielded. As filmmakers, we were not taught to merely entertain you. We were taught to change your mind. And so they taught us how to deceive you and manipulate your emotions, your thought processes, and your opinions by whatever means necessary. And they didn't just refer to us as filmmakers. Do you know what they called us? Culture changers. That's what we were. That's what we are. They made the claim, because think about it, they made the claim that we as filmmakers have more influential power and reach more people than most politicians or preachers or motivational speakers. How do I know that? Who else would you let talk to you, not with you, but to you for 2.5 hours? Because that's what you do every time you go to the theater. You sit down, you open your brain, and you let them dump ideas in. You don't get to converse with them or offer any feedback. You say, I'll take it. 2.5 hours. When was the last time you watched C-SPAN for 2.5 hours? When was the last time you watched any sitting president for 2.5 hours? Or preacher. Your preacher starts going for 2.5 hours. And you're like, oh man, come on. The potluck is the food's gonna get cold. But we do that every time we sit down to binge watch Netflix or sit down in a theater. You are letting those filmmakers talk to you. And I'm going to offer you a perspective that you may not have considered. Hopefully so that we can all of us, reevaluate our entertainment choices. And I'm speaking to me as well. Because every time I do a talk like this, I go home and I look at my movie collection and go, why do I still have that? Do I want my 8-year-old son to watch that? My 4-year-old son? Unfortunately, like I said, I've watched things in order to learn my craft that I seriously regret and cannot undo. One of the most anticipated thesis films in my graduating class was a film noir about a mentally unstable detective on the hunt for a serial killer that targeted dark-haired women, including the latest victim, his own girlfriend. And he left a Queen of Spades as a calling card because of this long-suppressed parental abuse. And yeah, there were some moral lessons in the movie about revenge versus justice and whether one had the right to take the law into their own hands, but they were veiled and easy to miss. And I was the writer and director of that film. And it wasn't until I finished it and Christian friends of mine were coming into my apartment to watch this thing that I had created that I thought, what am I doing? For 2 years, I had been told this is what we do with this craft. And I thought I had good intentions, and yet this is what I was producing. By God's grace, I've been able to use my talents in the last 5 or 6 years especially in a more God-honoring way, and I hope to communicate some of that with you. In this way, I believe that I've been given the privilege to learn at the feet of Hollywood professionals in order to use their own tools against them. And we're going to talk about these 2 points together. Don't misunderstand me. I don't believe that every filmmaker, every creative in Hollywood is out to destroy you. But at the very least, they are simply writing what they know. And they are writing from the worldview in which they ascribe. And we are taught to communicate what we believe. And usually, and I'm of this camp, I believe something so much, I want you to believe it too. And so you've got these filmmakers who believe that God isn't real. And they believe that their truth is just as good as your truth, and they believe that you have no right to inflict standards on them. And so they'll make movies like that. In fact, I need to go back one slide because I'm going to miss out. Let's do that one first. What does Hollywood know? Psalm 14 and verse 1 says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God." That's what they know. The problem with that is what they know is subject to change. Truth is relative, or so they say. Someone like Darwin can come along and tell some educated lies and change everything they think they know. They live in a world where God does not exist. And if he does exist, as some Hollywood movies drop in from time to time, God is this senile old grandfather, Santa Claus kind of guy who just kind of gives you what you want if you beg hard enough. But he doesn't really want anything from you. Here's an example. Has anyone seen Michael Bay's Transformers, like the original one? I think there were 18 of them now, right? Do you remember the original one? I'm not going to attempt Optimus Prime's voice. I just can't right now. But that opening scene, do you remember? There's this giant cube flying through space. And Optimus Prime talks about, in the beginning was the cube. And we don't know where it comes from, but it has the power to create worlds and fill them with life. And it's describing not just the origin of the Transformers, but of the universe. Anyone see any problems with that? I didn't. The first time I watched it, I'm just like, sweet, robots are transforming and they make this super cool sound and like I can't get enough. And everything's exploding. It's Michael Bay. Everything's exploding. And I didn't catch that in the first 15 seconds of their movie they said, God is not real. He didn't create life. He's not responsible for the universe. Here's an alternate suggestion. And we don't even catch it. Contrast that, perhaps, with the Chronicles of Narnia, where Lewis makes it very clear who he believes created the world, even when he's talking about a fictional world. Proverbs 14:12 says that there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. If we leave it up to us as humans to determine right and wrong, we're going to get it wrong every time. And it's going to destroy us. It's going to lead to death. So we were taught, let me get back to the second point. We were taught, we understand, and I say we collectively, creative Hollywood professionals, we understand that sometimes we're going to communicate messages that our audience does not like. And so we had to learn to wrap it up into something you did like. Explosions and transforming robots. And you chuckle, but that's what we learned to do. We understood we could not open a movie and say, God's not real. But we could wrap it up into something that maybe was half-truth, convincing, and appealed to your desires. Does it sound familiar? Satan did this at the very beginning. He came to Eve and said, "Did God really say you couldn't eat from the trees?" Part of that was true. God had put in a restriction, but it wasn't quite the whole truth. And he appealed to what Eve wanted, and he made it look good. And she believed it, and her husband believed it. And in the end, the result was death. Satan's been doing this for a long time. Hollywood's not original. Can we all agree on that? They have no original ideas, and I don't care what they try to get you to believe. All you have to do is remember 30 years ago. They keep trying this same method. Unfortunately, they're really good at it, and it works. They may not come out and tell you that God does not exist, that mankind is merely evolved primordial soup. Nowadays, actually, because again, I wrote this 15 years ago, nowadays they do just kind of tell you that. But usually, they'll deny a worldwide flood, they'll deny the 7 days of creation, and they'll do it by wrapping it up in animated cartoons like Ice Age and The Good Dinosaur and anything Pixar and Disney has made pertaining to the early years of humanity. They'll teach us that Darwin was right, God is wrong, that humans are animals, and Christians are foolish for not accepting the theory that still remains the theory of evolution. They might not actually come out and say, reject all forms of authority. But what they will do is they'll create enough movies that depict authoritative figures from the parents to the government as the bad guys. Every time. Every time. Ready Player One, The Hunger Games, The Matrix. The moral of these stories are that if the authority figures are bad enough, then we can break every conceivable law, laws of the land and moral laws, in order to justify overthrowing the bad guys. Here's an example. I haven't seen it, but I read enough about it. And again, I'm going to stomp on some feet. Sorry, not sorry. The John Wick movie involves an individual. He's the good guy, right? He used to be a bad guy, right? Because he killed people. And that's bad, Hollywood says sometimes. But now he's a good guy. But something happens. Somebody kills his dog. And so he then proceeds to kill no less than 77 people in one movie. Because it's okay, he's the good guy. This was not the kind of message that was communicated by Jesus or by his inspired apostles. Paul was able to say in Romans 12 and 13, never return evil for evil. You leave that up to God. And if he is able to say that during the time period that Nero is massacring Christians, that should give us some pause. That what Hollywood is telling us is right to do may not be. They may not actually point the finger at God and say that his plan for sexual relationships are outdated, but they will teach us that casual sex, adultery, homosexuality, gender fluidity is normal. It's typical. In fact, it should be applauded, they say. It's not a big deal. And they will use their definition, not God's definition. Look at 1 Corinthians 13. They'll use their definition of love to justify any kind of immoral behavior. And they will say that those who choose to save themselves for God's sacred marriage union are considered backward and quaint. They'll even use children's cartoons to do it. I'm not going to call out a lot of companies or movies specifically, but this one deserves a call out. In the last few months, Disney's not-so-secret agenda to introduce our children to ideas that should not be discussed with small children is out of the box. and Zoom calls between executives communicating what they have been doing for years. It's not that they've just now decided. They've been doing this for decades. Now they're just being honest about it. They may not tell you that violence solves every problem, but they won't offer you any other realistic alternative. They may not tell you that they're trying to undermine God's perfect law of liberty. They'll just do it. And we'll let them. We'll pay the streaming fees and the movie ticket prices, and we'll tell them, more, please. Guys, there are like 7 Transformer sequels. Why? Why do they keep making it? Because we keep asking them for more. Hollywood is incredibly skilled at the wrapping. It looks good on the outside. They have yet to figure out how to make something substantive on the inside. And to tease what we'll end this workshop with, that's our job. We have something substantive that we can give to our audiences. Let's work on the wrapping. We'll get there. So let's evaluate our entertainment choices so that we can better protect our families. Consider, and I'm going through this quickly. This is like a 2 or 3 lesson thing that I'm consolidating into 15 minutes. Consider first counting the cost of your entertainment. And I mean that by the financial cost. How much are we spending? Wasn't it awesome when we finally decided to cut the cord, right? No more cable. We're not going to pay that much. Now we're subscribing to like 18 streaming services. And how much money are we spending? And is that really the best use of our funds? I'll leave that up to you to decide. But maybe think of it this way. How much are we using in the service of the spread of the gospel? How much money per week, per month, are we spending to help people know Jesus? And when we compare that to how much we're spending on our streaming services, perhaps that should challenge us. Jesus said that where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where we put our money is what we believe in. Hollywood has figured this out. We ought to. How much time are we spending? I keep having to update these statistics because it's astronomical. I think this was 2019. On average, Americans, children and adults, are spending 6 to 7 hours per day consuming some kind of media. 6 to 7 hours a day. Now, they include in media written material. Awesome. There should be more of that. But mostly, they're talking about movies and shows and podcasts, 6 to 7 hours a day. Put this way, that is 3 months out of your year consuming media. And remember, I'm not saying that media is inherently evil, but if it's media that is shoveling Hollywood's worldview into our brains, is that really what we need to be doing 3 months out of our year? And then consider the influence cost. How much of our influence, the example that we set, do we spend on our entertainment? One of the most common criticisms of Christ Church, surely you all have heard this, what do they say about us? You're all a bunch of hypocrites. Why do they say that? Because we say that we believe in something different, that we are called to something higher, that we follow Jesus, but we watch the same things, we talk about the same topics, we engage in the same activities. And this is a super generalization, but hopefully it's stepping on everyone's toes, myself included. Do we look different from the world? Because it is not our similarities to the world that will attract them to the gospel. It is our differences. You think about the people out there who don't know Jesus, and they've been doing the world's thing for so long, they're tired of it. They don't want more of that. They want something better. We have it. Highlight it, show it, but don't conform to it. I have a list of common objectives and excuses. I'll just share, I think, the most common one. How many of us have said this? Because I said this throughout film school. I can watch whatever. It doesn't really affect me. Do you really believe it? I shake my head every time I hear this. I can't believe that I convinced myself of it, especially in film school. We as filmmakers know the influential power of this medium. It's why we do what we do. We know positively that it will affect you and resonate with you long after you've watched it. We wouldn't be in this industry if it didn't. It's the reason why the average company spends $5 million to air a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. 30 seconds of your time is worth $5 million because they know you'll be thinking about it later. It's why U.S. film companies spend $30 billion to create movies every year. That's just the U.S. film market. It's why advertisers want their messages in front of you while you pump gas and read the news on your phone, and when you play games on your tablet. They want their ads there because they know positively, even if you see it just for a second, it will affect you. They're counting on it. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15, don't be deceived. Don't be fooled. Bad company corrupts good morals. If I'm spending my days surrounding myself with fictional people, usually, who don't believe what I believe and are trying to actively corrupt me, it's going to affect me. And then the second one, we just don't have time to get into it, other than to say that's an excuse that is told it's not that bad, and my response will be compared to what? Was the sequel not as bad as the first one? Maybe. Did it follow God's standard of perfect holiness? Not that bad compared to what? So let's talk some resources. How do we evaluate our entertainment choices? It's actually easier now than it ever has been. It used to be that we had to kind of let someone be the guinea pig to go to the theater and then come back and tell us, please don't see that. Do not take your kids to that. I walked out halfway through. Now, and it's small, I hope you guys can read this. Now you can go to places like commonsensemedia.org. And they do reviews, not just on movies coming out in theaters, but on movies on streaming services. I believe they even do book reviews. And they're not so thorough that they would list every single bad word that might be in there, but they will give you a good sense. Kids in Mind, and it's a weird website address, just Google it, but Kids in Mind does the same thing. And they're specifically asking, I think, some really important questions. How is this affecting what my kids are learning? I think every review ought to do that. So those are things you should research before you've even watched the content. Maybe you just want services that filter out. Maybe it's a perfectly good movie, and have we all experienced that? If it had been for that 30-second scene, I would have shown that to my whole family. Well, there are services like VidAngel and ClearPlay. ClearPlay is a little harder to use, but it still exists. But VidAngel will actually filter out that content. And VidAngel, man, has got, you could filter out Jar Jar from episode 1 of Star Wars. It's amazing. You can filter out violence of varying degrees, any type of word. Maybe in our family, stupid, the S word. You can filter that out, apparently. So I would recommend that. It is it's a fee, it's a monthly service, and it connects to your other streaming services, which I have found incredibly valuable. So what do? Do we simply sit back and say, man, they're hitting us hard with this, they're rolling that horse in here, and all we can do is defend ourselves? The answer is no. Thankfully, no. we can use the same tools to counter this culture. And I'm imploring you, we must do this. And the good news is we have the same tools now that they do. And we have better access than we ever have before. I went to film school in 2005 because back then, if I wanted to learn this stuff, that's where I had to get it. And I had to spend a ridiculous amount of money to let them try to rip my faith out of me. Thankfully, there are many more options now. Much less expensive options. 20 years ago, we were all beholden to the Hollywood gatekeepers. If anyone wanted a movie or a television show made, they had to get Hollywood's permission because they had all the gear and all the talent and all the expertise. And so it's no wonder that for the vast majority of the movie industry, films that we appreciated as Christians simply just didn't get made. Or if they got made, we can think of Hollywood's attempts to tell biblical stories. Anyone seen Noah? Seriously? But that's what when you get Hollywood's permission, they say, well, we've got the money, we've got the talent. It's Russell Crowe after all, so like anything he does will be amazing. And we'll turn Noah into Gladiator Part 2, and it doesn't work. But 20 years ago, 10 years ago, really, that's the only choice that we had. Now, with affordable access to cinema quality gear, the advent of crowdfunding projects, we don't have to go to Hollywood and ask for money. We can just go to you. That's how Appian Media does it. We ask you, would you like us to make this? Help support it. And we also have a vibrant and growing independent film industry, and I believe a renewed desire of audiences for this kind of content. Even Hollywood can't deny it. Whatever your thoughts are about The Chosen, I'd be glad to share with you some of mine afterwards. The Chosen confounded Hollywood. They couldn't figure out how a series about Jesus could raise more money in crowdfunding than any project ever, and it's not even close. Why? Because they said, Hollywood, we don't need you. We're just going to ask the people, do you want a compelling story about Jesus? The options for us to learn the skills 15, 20 years ago were extremely limited. And so many of us had to do what I had to do. Or, as was my experience, and I hope I meet some people who can prove me wrong, we simply didn't learn. Christians said, well, I don't want to be taught by people like that, so I guess I can't learn. Or if we did, we went and let them tell us how to use these weapons. Well, nowadays, we can go online and learn at our own pace. I cannot tell you how much I've learned by some 12-year-old kid on YouTube who knows the program better than I do. And I'm so thankful for him. The gear is readily available. And I'm not talking about Hollywood's leftovers. We can now rent gear at incredibly affordable prices, the type of which Hollywood is using. We have professional-grade online instruction from media professionals, as well as many paid intern and apprenticeship opportunities, like where I teach at Apprentice University, and I'll tell you more about that here in just a moment. So let me take you through a few of these. The first one is tomorrowsfilmmakers.com. I'm not affiliated with these guys, but I love what they do. I've signed up for their content because as someone who teaches this to high school and college age students, I really appreciate their resources. I believe right now they're offering their entire course, which is like let's see, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. 1,000 video lessons. It's over 100 hours worth of content. I think they're offering it for like $97. And these are guys who work in their industry. They've been doing it for years, and they take you through it. They include asset downloads, personal mentoring. This course is epic. I would strongly recommend it. Motion University. I've actually worked with these guys on a few projects. I can tell you they offer a stellar series in 3 different courses. So they offer practical tools and knowledge and resources to help creators build a career, not just a hobby. Now, you may have a child, or you may be interested in, I'm interested in learning this, but I don't want to invest in $20,000 worth of gear to find out that I don't actually enjoy doing this. That's fine. Their first course, it's actually something similar that I teach at Apprentice, is called Film School in a Box, and they teach you how to tell video stories on your phone. So framing and storytelling and shot composition and camera movements and angles on your phone. And then they offer an intermediate and an advanced course. And the advanced course is, now that you've got this skill set and knowledge, how do you book clients? How do you invoice people? How do you get involved to attract more larger clients? Apprentice.university. So I didn't know you could do that, but apparently you can. Apprentice.university. I'm actually one of the instructors here, and I developed the criteria and much of the curriculum for their digital storytelling certificate. And this is located in Brownsburg, Indiana, but just within the last year, they've opened it up so that students can take these classes remotely. I teach classes like digital storytelling, which is using phones to tell compelling stories. I teach an advanced DSLR class where the students provide their own equipment, mirrorless or DSLR cameras, and we do more advanced techniques with lighting and audio, shot composition. I teach a multicam live streaming class where we use multiple mobile devices and do a live broadcast, 30-minute live show. It's way more stressful than what I'm doing right now. I am actually currently teaching a podcasting class, which has been pretty incredible. Apprentice is a college alternative. They are not an accredited school, but they offer students instruction on a weekly basis. Every Friday, they sit in on classes like mine, and throughout the rest of the week, they are apprenticing on paid apprenticeships in actual companies, learning by doing. And by being paid for their apprenticeships, it's actually paying for the classes that they take. So at the end of this approximately 2-year program, they have 0 debt. They've been to 6 to 8 apprenticeships and have a resume that's more impressive than mine was in my mid-30s. And ideally, they've got letters of recommendation from everyone. I can attest, for those who have finished this program, these students typically have 3 or 4 job offers lining up before graduation. And I had one student, I think he was 19. I don't think he'd mind me sharing this. He comes to me and he's like, I've got 2 or 3 offers. I'm curious your feedback. This is his first job out of school. He's saying they're offering me $65,000 with full benefits. Is that good? I said, yeah, it's all right. I cannot speak highly enough about this individual and this school. So check that out, apprentice.university. For the remainder of their time, I'll talk a little bit about what we do at Appian Media. This is one way that we are trying to achieve this mission of influencing and countering the culture of Hollywood. So back in 2015, myself and Stuart Peck, he's the other co-founder, he's down at our booth. I'd encourage you to visit with him. We were sitting for coffee in 2015 and kind of complaining about the fact that we were trying to teach specifically high school students, but young people, about the Bible, and all we had to show them at the time were these dusty old maps. We're trying to get them to see these were real places, these were real people, and the resources that we had available were either behind a paywall, so we didn't know if it was going to really teach what we wanted, or they were free, and there was a reason that they were free. And we'd go on YouTube and we're looking for, videos from Israel, from the Bible lands, and we would find what Stu and I have coined these lectures in the land. Have you seen these? It's a gentleman, and he's talking about the Bible story, and behind him, way off in the back, is Jerusalem. And he's telling you how epic the city is and all the history, and for 30 minutes, we're just watching him there lecture. He just happens to be somewhere nearby. We decided, let's quit complaining about this. What would it take? Stu's another industry professional, has made documentary films and reality TV. I've made short films and feature films. We've both worked in news, and we said, what would it take for us to take a group over to Israel and make this stuff ourselves and then give it away for free? It took a Kickstarter campaign. I was familiar at the time with crowdfunding. We started a nonprofit, launched a Kickstarter campaign. We raised $65,000 to take our first trip to Israel, a group of about 6 of us, to create the first set of 5 videos of something we call Following the Messiah. And I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. We are motivated by this verse, specifically the one at the top here. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. We understood that we had a skill set that not many Christians had at the time. And we said we could sit around here and complain about what we don't have, or we could get to work and figure out how to get this thing done. So I want to share with you a brief video, just a highlight of what I say is the heart of Appian Media.
I think of the thousands and thousands of hours that this team has put in, and it's just the beginning. Early on, Craig and I made the decision that we wanted to give away a lot of these series for free, and a lot of people might say, well, that's crazy. Through the power of donations, we've been able to do this, and the thousands of hours that this team has put into it.
You think about the reason why. Why would you want to be a part of this? And I mean, when you think about what Appian Media has set out to do, the Bible is so rich.
It is worth it. And it's hard on all of us. It's hard on our families. Bless our wives and our kids who let us go for weeks. And bless the people who trust us with their money. It's because strangers tell us that it saved them from a dark time.
The most important thing is making sure that we're faithful to the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And people are hearing that, and that it's a spiritual benefit to them. It increases their faith in God. It increases their faith in God's Son, in His Word. And it's worth it.
To God be the glory.
So you can visit appianmedia.org. If you're on a mobile device, we strongly encourage you to download the free app. Every piece of content we have ever made is available for free on that app. I want to share with you, with time remaining really quick, the trailer for our most recent production. It's called Trial and Triumph, Revelation's Churches. We traveled to Turkey in the midst of COVID, as if Revelation was easy enough. We decided, let's do it during COVID. And we went to Turkey and we visited the area of these 7 churches and created Trial and Triumph. And I want to share that trailer with you right now.
My interaction with the book of Revelation has been lifelong. I mean, I remember reading it as a kid and being so confused.
You can fly into Istanbul. From there, you can visit a number of places.
There is a lot of application and relevance between the 7 churches of Asia and what our culture is going through.
We are living in a time of uncertainty and doubt. In many ways, I feel like we as a church, we've given in to the fear.
Over 10 years ago, we had 3 Christians martyred here in this country. That was quite a wake-up call.
We had plans of moving to Saudi Arabia for a while.
I felt out of place. I always knew that there were people watching me.
To make sure that we didn't spread our faith.
We've asked ourselves, why would we go? Why should we go? What if something happens?
I had these shakes and chills, temperature's 104.5.
It's been one of the most testing weeks of my life.
What we read about in the history of these cities is still going on.
Turkey has been struck by a powerful earthquake off its Aegean coast.
I'm like, I want to move to a Spanish-speaking country and preach.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico? This is one of the strongest hurricanes so far this season.
Everything is going down.
We've asked ourselves, what are we doing here? When you give up a lot of the things that are comfortable, it hits your spirit deep and it calls you to the place that is beyond.
So it could be that the churches in Revelation are assembling in places like this.
They're normal people, just like you and me. I grew up with stories, oh, there are tunnels under this way, under that way. We went this far, but we were scared, we came back.
What do we got here?
Oh, wow.
We're looking at one of the earliest Christian inscriptions that we have. The immediacy of these texts is just renewed over and over when I come back here and visit them.
Jesus did not come into the world to change political systems. He came into the world to change people.
If Jesus were to write a letter to our church, what would he say?
So this is a feature-length documentary. We completed it last October, and it is available along with our other series and podcasts. I'll go through this quickly because I'd love to open it up for questions. I really do mean that this time. Following the Messiah is a 10-episode series about the life of Jesus, and we took 2 trips to Israel to complete that. In 2018, we released Searching for a King. This answers the criticism that David was likely not a real person. He was probably just a legendary figure that Israel created in order to make themselves seem more important. And there's no archaeological evidence for blah, blah, blah. Spoiler alert, there is, and we take you there and show you that in Israel. Lessons from the Land is the first of what will be a series of children's videos. And basically what we did is we took the content of Following the Messiah and created some new lessons, video lessons for grades 1 through 5. I know parents who still enjoy it. And these are short, 5-minute videos. There are 13 of them where we take kids through meaningful and important moments in the Gospels. Trial and Triumph, as I mentioned. These are the podcast series that we have created. Inroads is where Stuart and myself discuss with other people who are using media to evangelize. And we talk about ways that they're doing that and what we have done with Appian Media. Digging Deeper it's a great podcast. It's got Barry, one of our co-hosts, and another member of our team together. I think they've been to the Bible lands somewhere between 25 and 30 different trips. And so these are 2 Bible nerds talking about the Bible lands, and it's epic. It's awesome. And then Listen, My Children. I would strongly encourage this if you were in the workshop yesterday. But this is a video podcast. You can listen to it and watch it, as with all of these, where Justin Dobbs takes us through how to either start or improve your own family Bible study time. So how do you engage your kids? And so he's got 4 young children of differing ages and shows us how to do that. My admonition to all of you is if you are parents, for yourselves and for your kids, let's think differently about what we're consuming at home and what we're supporting and what we're teaching our kids. If you have any inclination that you might have a desire for using your creative talents or developing those to create something to counter the culture, please take advantage of the resources we've recommended. Come and find us at our booth, and I'll gladly talk with you more. But we don't have to sit by and let it happen. We can change it. Come to our booth. We're at 1418, and I'll walk you through the curriculum that we've created to go along with these free videos. You can watch the videos, no strings attached, but we strongly encourage people to use these printed study guides that include QR codes that you can scan that take you directly to the portions of videos, that have compelling discussion questions that you can use with your kids and with your classes, and photos and media that we've taken from the Bible lands. Come and find us. We would encourage you to take advantage of these. We've got 5 minutes for questions. What kind of questions do you all have? Yes. I told you I only have 5 minutes. I only have 5 minutes.
They go a more like fictional route in the
They do.
season for what I've seen, and I actually
They do. I applaud their effort. They are doing something that I have never seen done with the story of Jesus. And what they're doing is they're making Jesus not look like an actor pretending to be Jesus. And the meticulous nature that they have portrayed first century, I've never seen done as well as they have. So I will give them that. I am hesitant, and I would be in Dallas Jenkins, the director and co-writer's position, to put words in Jesus' mouth that we don't have in the text. I'm not saying necessarily he's doing a bad job with it. He's going to do 7 seasons of this. I personally am hesitant to put words in Jesus' mouth that the inspired writers didn't. Absolutely. Let's talk more about that at the booth. What other questions do you have? We simply don't do reenactments. So what we do is we take real people, Jeremy Dehut, and in fact he's going to be here later today, and Barry Britnell, and we take them to the real places. And we talk to historians and archaeologists and locals, and we talk about what the culture was. We show you what there is there. Now we may use animations to show you, to help visualize what the temple looked like in the first century. We occasionally talk to, there's a place in Nazareth called Nazareth Village where they do like Passover meal reenactments. That's super cool. Where someone in costume sits down and walks us through what a Passover meal is like. But we don't attempt to recreate biblical characters. I'm not necessarily saying that that's wrong. We've just chosen to show you the real. Yep, I do. Yes, sir. Yes. And I'm glad that you picked up on that. We don't intend to create things to entertain you. That is not our primary mission. We want you to love the Bible more because of what we've made. And the thing that I love hearing people say, we've watched your content. That's exciting. When people say, we binge watched your content. Well, maybe what I love hearing is, we watched this, and then I went and I wanted to read 1 Samuel all the way through. Awesome. Oh, I read Mark, and it hit me a different way now that I've seen Following the Messiah. That's what we want to hear, that the Scripture becomes alive. Someone once said, it makes the black and white of the text seem color. That's what we're trying to do. So yes, I'd be happy to talk with you more about that. We do that. Any other questions? Yes. Aha. What do I think about subliminal messages? They are real. And we were taught to use them. And they affect people's minds. Did I try to slip a couple of extra frames into one of my projects that asked my professor to give me an A? Yes, I did. Did I get an A? Yes, I did. Can we change the way you feel based on the music that you're listening to? Yes, we can. Can I change the way you feel about a character based on the color of light that I'm putting on their face? Yes, I can. And it has nothing to do with what they're saying. So yes, it is powerful. And like I said, it's a tool that when wielded correctly and honestly can have great results. But it's when we try and trick you, I don't believe in that. No, you're not going to find subliminal messages in Appian Media's content. We're going to be real up front. We're trying to get you to love Jesus more. I think I've got 60 seconds based on my clock. Any other questions? Why did the 3 Christians die in Turkey? That was about 10 years ago because they were trying to evangelize to some people who believed in Islam. And
trying to teach
yes.
God, and they didn't want that happening, so they just murdered them?
Correct. Yes. And that still happens today. So we were discussing Revelation 1 through 3. There was great persecution going on in many of those churches. And we are trying to communicate in our video that's not ancient history, that's still current history. There are parts of this world that are violently opposed to the spreading of the gospel. Great question. Was there one more? It's good enough. I don't believe the Bible should ever be good enough. I don't believe our presentation of God's truth should ever be good enough. I would simply say, after watching that movie, and we've been picking on Noah, sorry, Russell Crowe, but after watching that movie, were they compelled to go back and read Genesis? To me, if a piece of content does not encourage you to get back into the Word, then it's not really a piece of biblical content. What does it do to improve and better your understanding? I watched enough of that movie to go, this makes Noah seem like a totally different man than the righteous man that Genesis tells us he was. And this makes God, have you guys seen it? God destroyed the planet and covered it with a flood because they were abusing the planet. Come on. Does that help us to appreciate the nature of sin and its consequences? Why? No, it doesn't. So what I would say is, does it draw me closer to the real God of the Bible and his true message? And if not, it's not worth my time, personally. I think I've kept you long enough. We are down at booth number 1418. For the first 10 of you that can get there, we've got some goodie bags that we'd love to share with you. And for the rest of you, please come and visit us. We'll be down there answering questions. Thank you.